Alright, this lesson is 2.2 and it's called Hats Off to the Wumps. So what you're wanting to get out of this, it all still relates to being able to determine whether two shapes are similar or two figures are similar. In this case, we're looking at the hats of the characters. So the learning target specifically is I can understand the role of multiplication, addition, and subtraction, the role they play in similarity relationships. So again, more of trying to figure out, do I think this hat is similar or not to Mug's hat? And then looking at what the different rules do to the shape of the hat. And then how you can look at a rule and determine whether you think it's going to create a similar hat or not. So those wrap-up questions we will address as a whole group at the end of the lesson, at the end of the day. So we will get to those things. Alright, so Zach experiments with multiplying Mug's coordinates by different whole numbers to make other characters. That's what you just did. Marta asks her uncle how multiplying the coordinates by a decimal or adding numbers or subtracting numbers from each coordinate will affect Mug's shape. He gives her a sketch for a new shape, a hat for Mug, and some rules to try. So these rules are going to change, but it doesn't change the way you actually find the new coordinates. You're going to just follow the rules and graph them. So the first thing you want to do is take a look at Mug's hat. You're going to come down here and you're going to fill in the coordinates. So the first two are done for you, which includes A, which is 1, 1. B is all the way over here at 9, 1. Okay, so you're going to continue to fill in Mug's hat. I'm going to actually walk you through this part because you need this in order to figure out the rest of it. So C's coordinates are 6, 2. You could pause the video to figure out, make sure you're doing this correctly. Like try it on your own first and then come back and check. D is 6, 3. Let's see, E is 4, 3, which is right here. And F is 4, 2. G is 1, 1 because that completes we're back to the beginning, completes the hat. So we have those coordinates. Now we're going to use these coordinates and we're going to apply each of these new rules that you've been given. Okay, I'm going to do like the first one in each column, then I want you to figure out the rest of it. Before you start to fill in these coordinates, you want to make a prediction. So for each one of these, you want to predict, I think hat 1, right here, the rules for this hat are going to create a similar figure and why. So you want to make a prediction for each hat before you move forward and figure out if it actually does make a similar hat. So we're going to say, I think it's going to be similar and this is why. Or I don't think it's going to be similar because the rule says I'm doing this and I don't think that's going to create a similar hat to Mug's hat. Okay, so you're going to go through, make predictions for each. From there, you're going to apply each rule. So in this case, we have x plus 2. So we're taking all these x coordinates, we're adding 2. Y plus 3. So we're going to take all these coordinates and add 3 to them. For instance, x, which is 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. Y, which is 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. So you're just going to take each of these x's and you're going to add 2. Each of the y's, you're going to add 3. Moving forward. This time we have x minus 1. So we're going to place the 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. And then we're going to add 4 to the y. So y, which is 1, 1 plus 4 is 5. Okay, so you're going to take away 1 from the x, and you're going to add 4 to the y. The next one, we're going to keep x the same. So x is 1. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize what. So x, we're going to add 2 to it. So 1 plus 2 is 3. My bad. Then for the y's, we're going to multiply by 3. So 3 times 1 gives me 3. The next one, we're going to multiply by 1/2 or 0.5. Feel free to use a calculator. So 0.5 times 1 is 0.5 for the x. Then 0.5 times 1 is 0.5 again for the y. If you have trouble using these rules, feel free to come back to my table or raise your hand. I'll come and help you with these. So all we're doing here is 1/2 times 9, which is 4.5. 1/2 times 1, which is 1/2. You're just going to continue down. The last hat, we're going to take 2, we're going to multiply by 1, or the x, which is 1, that gives me 2. And then 3 times 1 gives me 3. So you're going to multiply each of the x's times 2, each of the y's by 3, fill in these coordinates, okay? I did the first row here. You also have a copy of this on the back of this page. It might make more sense to fill it in back here, just because you actually have the grids here to look at. But once you fill in the table and you think it's correct, you're going to come back to me again. I'm going to let you know whether they're correct or not before you start graphing, because if they're wrong, we want to fix them. So you're going to fill in, you're going to come back. I'm going to check this off for you. Then you're going to go and you're going to graph each hat. So hat 1 is going to be graphed here. Hat 2 is going to be graphed here. And so on. Okay, 3, 4, and 5. This is an extra graph in case you mess up somewhere and you're using a pen or something silly like that. You have an extra one. If you need to use it, you can. After you finish graphing each one, again, you're going to come back to me. I'm going to check those for you. And then you're going to go to the questions, which are on the following page. So, you're going to compare the angles and side lengths of the hats. Okay? Which ones seem similar? So, going back to that prediction, how correct do you think your prediction was based on the angles and sides? You should know that those are the two things you're looking for to determine similarity in two shapes. You're going to look at the angle measures, make sure they're congruent. And you're going to look at the side lengths and make sure that there's some way that you can figure out whether or not, like if they're times 2 or times 3, and then times 2 or times 3 this way. So it has to be equal. Then you're going to write rules that you think match these different statements. Okay, so you're going to say, if we wanted the side lengths to be 1/3 as long as Mug's hat, what would the rule be? What would I multiply x by? What would I multiply y by? Or if you think you're adding something, what would you add to x? What would you add to y? So on and so forth. So then you're going to figure out the one, if you want it 1.5 times as big. If you want the hat that is the same size as Mug, but has moved right 1 unit and up 5 units. So think about what you think you would do to figure this out. And then a rule that is not similar to Mug's hat. Again, if at any point during this lesson you get very confused and you need some help, come back to my table. I will be more than happy to help you. If most people are confused, then we will stop and we'll talk about this as a whole group. Otherwise, at the very end of class, we will wrap this up and we will talk about the rules and how changing coordinates can affect similarity in figures.